Okay, so today we're going to be talking about research. This includes developing your research question and developing your methodology. So first, let's think about what exactly research is. So in broad terms, it is the process of inquiring, describing, and explaining the world around us. That's how our book defines it, and that's pretty broadly and loosely defined of what we would think research is. Research is usually trying to uncover what it is, what something is, learn something new, or better understand the subject. So when you're creating a research process, particularly with this recommendation report, and with other things as well, you're first going to define your research subject. So what is it that you're going to be looking up and researching? So in your case, you guys are trying to better understand universal design and come up with ways in which to make certain things more universal in design for maybe a business or a UNM resource or even a city attraction. So next you would then formulate a research question and a hypothesis. So going off of our activity last week with the core curriculum sheet, your research question could be, how do you make the UNM core curriculum worksheet more universal in design and accessible to first generation students or to all students in general? And then your hypothesis, what do you think that's going to be? Is it going to be putting this on, do you think, before even starting research, is this, putting it up online? Is it creating it or making it so it is more than one page? Whatever it is, you'd kind of come up with a rough idea of what you think your end result's going to be. And then you're going to develop a research methodology. Like we've described before, your research methodology is the steps in creating and starting to do this research. If somebody was to recreate your actual research and the results that you gained, they would be able to follow the process that you laid out. So maybe I'm going to first, interview experts to best understand, what makes things easier to read and interpret. And then maybe I'm going to have a survey to best understand the difficulty currently for UNM students, things like that. And then I'm going to triangulate sources of information. That triangulation comes from multiple sources. So electronic sources, things I find on the web, maybe on some sort of online database, something print, so anything physically found in like the library, in a book, things like that. And then empirical being, firsthand research or experimentation. And then lastly, you're going to appraise the collected information and determine its reliability. So the things that you've actually received, you determine whether or not this is actually something that you would like to include in your report. As we've discussed, in the recommendation report, in your results section, you're not going over every single thing that you found during your research process, but instead you're talking about the major findings. So maybe after you've appraised some of the things that you've received and learned, then that's what you would go ahead and include in that section. So we have two types of sources when we're doing research. One is primary research, primary sources of information. This comes from observations, experiments, surveys, interviews, ethnographies, and testing. The ones that I would see you guys probably using most, especially for this recommendation report, would be observations, surveys, and interviews. Experiments could come in if you were maybe trying to tried two different layouts for a document or something like that, and you surveyed people to see which one they liked better. Something like that, I guess, would work. Secondary sources of research comes from things like academic journals, magazine or news articles, books, websites, research databases, and other reference material. So this is all sources that aren't something that you created or discovered on your own. This is something that somebody else has already written about and has been published in a reliable location. And that's when you'll go ahead and quote that material. So, some reliable sources, we've heard this probably since day one of doing research in any form from middle school and beyond, is to try to find a reliable source. Reliable means that there is limited personal, political, or financial stakes in the subject. So the source creating or writing about this or talking about it should be fairly unbiased and have limited stakes or of anything in this subject. So something like books, newspapers, magazines, peer-reviewed articles. These are usually reviewed by multiple people who are experts in the field. Academic research, so studies or dissertations. Library databases. Our UNM library has many different journals and things to find, so using library databases to find and narrow down that research is a great start. Or any website with usually a .edu, .gov, or .org is a good rule of thumb as well. So some unreliable sources would mean they have a certain agenda or bias that may limit the claims and facts being presented. Wikipedia is unreliable in the sense that almost anybody can edit it, and it's really hard to judge some of that information on there. It is sometimes a nice jumping off point if you're, say, trying to better understand what it is, what something is. So if you're really not sure about, say, dyslexia or a reading disability, and that's maybe a major part of your research, you can start there to understand what it is, but I would not cite anything that's found in there. That's more of just getting to better understand the subject, and then you go off to go, okay, maybe I know my angle, or I know what I need to start searching. Blogs and tweets, personal websites or forums, anything where somebody is publishing the information without an editor is usually a mistake. I know this video is not going to play, but I'll have it on our Learn page as well. But John Oliver, if you haven't seen him before, it's just a weekly news show, and this one goes over unreliable quotes. So things that we see on memes and things found in the internet, usually something that looks like some inspirational background, and a quote from, say, like a famous president or just person in history in general, and usually it's not the correct quote. So, again, just making sure you understand your sources. So after you've done all of your research, you've collected all of this great material, you then want to appraise your evidence. You want to understand, is this information good? So you ask yourselves a few questions. So is this a reliable source? How biased is the source? So kind of understanding what it is that you're looking at. What is this website's agenda? Things like that. Are you biased towards the subject? Is the source up to date? So maybe it's really great information, but it was last, updated in 1995. Maybe trying to find something else that's a little bit more reliable. Can the evidence be verified? And then, have I plagiarized any of my sources? The last one, you may not even realize it, so just going back and making sure that you've quoted all the material, that you've either directly quoted, summarized, or paraphrased, and make sure you cite that, and then you'll be set to go. So the last part of this presentation is just taking a look at the actual UNM library database if you haven't been here yet. It's a pretty easy to use site, and if you're going in person, you can actually talk to a librarian as well. There's a lot of experts in the field, but obviously, doing research from home is really common. I do this all the time. You have quite a few different options. One is doing a quick search where you just type it in what you're exactly looking for. Looking through through books, different journals. If you know the name of the journal that you want to start looking through, you can as well. Books, you can search by author, title, or keywords. You can also search from databases. I usually use Academic Search Complete. It's a pretty simple one and easy to use. It's powered by EBSCOhost. So you just usually have to log in, and then you can go ahead and search your material. So if I'm wanting universal design and documents, and I want the full text, and I want this to be from a peer-reviewed source, and then I can go ahead and search it, and then I'll get some results as well. Maybe some of these are, good sources, maybe not. You probably have to have a little bit different keywords there. Maybe accessible documents. And again, it's just going to take a little bit of digging and stuff, but you can usually find, different journal articles. You can narrow it down even more by looking at journal articles. Maybe you're trying to learn about something more specifically, like a learning disability or common problems for, undergraduate students or things like that that would influence your report. It really does depend on your angle. But I wanted to go ahead and go over that as well. But that's the end of the presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to post them to the Writers Lounge or email me directly.